All right, people, I'm back. I've been away having fun over the past week or so, but now it's time to do a little catch up. And rather than make multiple separate videos, I thought I'd put it all into one episode of the Boxing Brotherhood podcast. But this time I'll be flying solo. So I hope you guys appreciate the catch up. Anyway, let's get into it. The first fight and first bit of news I'll be covering is, of course, Joe Cordina's fantastic win on the weekend over Kenichi Ogawa. He captured the IBF World Super Featherweight title with a stunning second round knockout. Cordina's a guy who's been around for quite a while, 30 years of age, so he's getting up there now. Only 14 fights going into the Ogawa fight. So he's someone that really needed to get a move on. And it was a kind of now or never type scenario, right? Because when you're dealing with these smaller fighters, they don't tend to have the longevity that, let's say, heavyweights have. So at 30 years of age, you really need to be fighting for world titles. You really, at this kind of weight, you want to be fighting for world titles when you're 25, 26, 27. Cordina, 30 years of age, so really pushing it. But can I say that he made up for lost ground with the performance he put in? Perhaps, because everything went perfect. It was reminiscent to me of a Kronk-style knockout and a Kronk-style performance where he was very relaxed and sharp, and he feinted to the body in the second round with the jab and came over the top with a terrific right hand that Tommy Hearns would have been proud of. Now, I don't want any idiots in the comments to say, you're saying that Cordina hits as hard as Hearns. There's always some idiot. Obviously not. Different weight divisions and all that. And Hearns, an absolute monster puncher, one of the hardest punchers pound for pound in boxing history for my money. Now, I'm talking about the setup. Hearns would often throw shots like that. And many Kronk fighters would throw shots like that, feint with the jab to the body and the right hand over the top. And Cordina's stance is a bit reminiscent of a Kronk fighter at times. So that's why I make the comparison. And yeah, as soon as the shot landed, you knew the fight was over. Ogawa didn't know what had hit him. Probably thought it was a train or something. And that's all she wrote. So congratulations to Joe Cordina for a fantastic performance. And of course, people are looking at the likes of Shakur Stevenson and saying, can Joe Cordina actually go in there and give him some work, potentially beat him and so on? I think it's a very tall order for Joe Cordina because Stevenson is very talented, but stranger things have happened. So watch this space. I'm sure they're going to be looking to try and make that fight for big money. And that's another thing as well for Joe Cordina is once you become a world champion, your checks tend to get bigger and bigger. And that's the name of the game. At the end of the day, it's prize fighting. At 30 years of age, prior to this, he hadn't made life-changing sums of money. Well, now, hopefully, he can start making those life-changing sums and secure himself and his family's future. So, yeah, shout out to Joe Cordina. I'm sure he doesn't watch the videos, but shout out anyway. And that was a great performance by him. So moving on, Devin Haney went out to Australia and he defeated George Kambosos on a 12-round unanimous decision. Now, going into this fight, I thought it would probably be competitive enough for them to rob Haney. I didn't see Haney just going out there and winning every single round. I thought, oh yeah, Haney can win this fight, but are they really going to give him the decision in Australia? You know, he just seems like a massive B-side here. He's got everything against him. And I know he's got Bob Arum and all that, but is Bob Arum really his promoter? Do you know what I mean? But other people have pointed out that Bob Arum would like to be Haney's long-term promoter, surely. You know, perhaps he thinks he's got another potential star in his hands, although Bob Arum has been pretty disparaging about some of the stars or potential stars he's had, like Terence Crawford, for example. I mean, he had an absolute gem in Crawford, and he was always insulting the guy, you know? Anyway, I thought that Haney would be in a competitive fight against Kambosos and would perhaps outbox him, but not comprehensively enough to avoid getting robbed. But he proved me wrong in that sense. He absolutely made it one-sided. He made it so one-sided that it was impossible to rob him. In a similar fashion to Dimitri Bivol against Canelo. Another fight where I thought, okay, Bivol on a level playing field could beat Canelo on points, but this ain't going to be a level playing field, and I don't think he'll beat him widely enough that they won't be able to rob him. Okay, so that was a similar situation to Devin Haney here, but he went out there and basically just used the jab. There wasn't really much else from Devin Haney in terms of punches other than just using that stick. He, of course, has excellent range control, and it was one of Haney's more Mayweather-esque performances in recent years, because some of his performances haven't been that Mayweather-esque in terms of stylistically, but for this fight, he certainly went back to a more Mayweather-type style. In some of his other recent fights, he was trying to sit down on his shots and be a puncher and all this kind of thing. But here against Kambosos, he just stuck to pure boxing, which is what I said after the Linares fight. You guys may remember me commenting on that fight, saying that I think Haney should forget about trying to prove that he can punch. He should just be this slick, counter-punching boxer, and he should stick to that because that's his strong point. He's never going to be this devastating knockout artist, so don't try to be. Just do what works for you. And when you do that, people are going to walk into punches. You're not even going to be thinking about a knockout. You're just going to be thinking about hitting and not getting hit. But in the process of doing that, you will catch certain guys and you will hurt them and you will be able to stop them from time to time. That didn't happen here, but he did comprehensively outbox George Kambosos. Kambosos really couldn't land much other than the body shots. Haney had the longer arms. He was using the jab very well. His range control was excellent. He was staying side on. His footwork was great. He was always in the right place in the ring at the right time. His upper body movement was fantastic. He was moving up and down, bending at the waist, and just controlling and frustrating George Kambosos throughout the course of the 12 rounds. As I say, Kambosos landed some body shots. Kambosos claims that he hurt Haney every time he hit him. I mean, personally, I didn't see that, but some fighters are very good at hiding the fact that they've been hurt or buzzed. Let me know what you guys think about that claim in the comments below. Was George Kambosos hurting Devin Haney every time he hit him? I find that an interesting thing to say. The official scorecards in the end were 116-112, 118-110, and 116-112. Many people feel like the two 116-112s were too close, and they perhaps were the attempt that I was talking about to rob Devin Haney, because many people sort of fight as a 118-110 type situation where Kambosos won maybe a couple rounds, 1 or 2 rounds in the fight. And so if it had turned out to be more competitive as I thought it might be, then I guess, according to many people, I would have been bang on in my suspicion that they would have tried to rob Devin Haney with scorecards this close, when, again, most people felt like the fight was a clear shutout for the Dream, as he calls himself. So yes, Devin Haney is now the undisputed champion at lightweight. And once again, I have to stick it right back to the doom mongers, the naysayers in boxing, who are always putting the sport down and saying how UFC does it so much better and this, that, and the other. But yet we've got another undisputed champion. And unlike MMA, we have multiple promotional companies in boxing. In MMA, they've got multiple promotional companies too. But the point I want to make is, in boxing, fighters from or under different promotional banners fight each other in unifications. In MMA, that don't happen. You've got the UFC. They don't do unifications with other MMA entities, do they? The entities in Japan or, wherever else, they don't do that. The UFC just recruit their own talent and they do everything in-house, So in boxing, and look, there are certain things UFC do that are great. There are certain things UFC does that are better, that's better than boxing. But the reverse is also true. There are certain things, for my money, that boxing does better than UFC. And boxing isn't in as bad a position as some of its critics, who are apparently boxing fans, make it out to be. I think they're just people who like complaining. Some people are just perpetually miserable, and they can never say a positive thing about much in life, never mind boxing. It's just a reflection of their attitude towards life in general. So, yeah, hats off to Devin Haney becoming undisputed. His dad was finally let into the country at the last minute. And you really have to wonder if there was shenanigans going on there, because what could they have possibly found, or who could they have possibly spoken to at the last minute to make them change their mind about Bill Haney's 30-year-old drug conviction? It's like, come on, you had all the information from the beginning about that. He didn't hide it. And yet somehow you're acting like you're going to block him coming into the... Anyway, it's all by the by, it's all water under the bridge, but I can't help suspect that might have been some kind of shenanigans. I know people are going to say, well, it's far-fetched, because why would, immigration be involved in something like that? Well, all it would take is for some very patriotic boxing fans to be in immigration. Do you know what I mean? That's all it would take, some very patriotic boxing fans, and they're scouring over the records or whatever of Devin Haney's team, and they're like, we don't want his dad to be with him. Do you know what I mean? Some very patriotic boxing fans potentially in the immigration who wanted to make it difficult. I mean, these things happen. They're human beings at the end of the day in immigration. They're not like robots, right? They do have prejudices. They do have biases. They do have allegiances, just like everybody else. So again, I can't prove that was the case, that it was some shenanigans going on there. But in my mind, it's certainly possible, knowing human beings how they are. Anyway, moving on. There was some reaction to Devin Haney's win. Kambosos said, every time I tried to exchange, Haney held. He did hold a lot. He said, where is it here now? Where we go? Yeah. Kambosos is sure he hurt Haney on multiple occasions, though both to his body and head. That's why, according to Kambosos, Haney held so often during a mostly unremarkable bout. Haney won by unanimous decision at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne. Kambosos said, I was sharp at points. I landed some very good shots. I hurt him a few times. I feel like every time I landed clean, he was hurt. So he just fought his game off that jab. He just boxed off that jab and did his holding. He did hold a lot. He did get low. Every time I tried to exchange, he'd hold and he'd drop into that hip. So it is what it is. Yeah, Haney used the upper body movement. He didn't stay at one level. He changed his levels. And I'm talking about his height in the ring. He would dip down, he would bend his knees, and so on. And that just gives a opponent a different look, because they never quite know where the target is going to be. A guy who stands straight up, you always know what level his head is going to be at. But a guy who's always bending at the waist and bending his knees, he's giving you different looks constantly. So you're not sure where that head's going to be. Because sometimes in boxing, a guy might move his head a little bit. But if you aim for the chest, you're going to get him when he tries to duck the shot. But when a guy is as dynamic defensively as Haney was in this fight, it's much more difficult to predict where his head is going to be and what you need to be doing. So, that's what George Kambosos said. Haney held a lot. And there's another article here where he said Haney was hurt every time I landed. It was a boring fight. Ryan Garcia, of course, a rival of Devin Haney, called it a NyQuil type performance. Now, NyQuil, for those of you who don't know, is like the American equivalent of Nytol in the UK. I don't know if it's made by the same company. It perhaps isn't, but it's a sleeping pill, basically, right? So Ryan Garcia predictably saying that Devin Haney's performance was boring. Now, I can't say that it weren't boring. Devin Haney isn't always the most exciting performer in the ring, but he got the job done. It was kind of like Tyson Fury when he beat Vladimir Klitschko. Get the win this time. Worry about looking good next time, particularly in this type of situation here against George Kambosos. You don't want to go in there and give Kambosos the opportunity to land shots and all this kind of thing, because you're going to give the judges an opportunity to start scoring more rounds to Kambosos. So go in there, make sure you're hitting and not getting hit. And that's exactly what Devin Haney did. He boxed his way to a 12-round victory. You can't do any better than that from a tactical point of view if you're Devin Haney, at least from my perspective. Anyway, moving on from that fight there, the Inoue-Donaire rematch. Now, the first fight was a fantastic one. A lot of people were surprised, including myself, at how well Donaire did. I was expecting the first fight to go the way the second fight went, actually. And in the second fight, of course, I'm sure most of you have seen it, Inoue knocked out Nonito Donaire in the second round. He dropped him towards the end of the first and got him out of there in the second. Now, was this a case of Inoue making adjustments and being better this time around than he was in the first fight against Donaire? Did he maybe underestimate Donaire a little bit? Did he, like me and many other people, think that the first fight would be not necessarily easy, but relatively straightforward? Is that the mindset that Inoue went into the first Donaire fight with, because he thought that Donaire was kind of an over-the-hill fighter? And was this performance in the rematch indicative of somebody who took Donaire more seriously this time? Or was it a case of Donaire taking tremendous punishment in that first fight and not being the same guy this time around? Perhaps it was a combination of the two. Perhaps it was Inoue being better prepared, but also Donaire being the older fighter, that the punishment he took in the first fight taking more of a toll on him than the punishment Inoue took in that first fight. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. But this is the way to win a rematch. You know, if you have a difficult fight first time around, and Inoue had a fractured orbital bone, I believe, real difficult fight for him, and he was hurt in the fight. And, you know, given plenty of problems by the old veteran Donaire, who can punch himself. This is the way to go in there and settle the score. You know, just get in there, blast the guy out if you can. It's not always possible. It's not always feasible. But where it is possible, you just put all speculation and all doubts to bed by taking the guy out early. Donaire said that this was the hardest punch. In the first round, he gets dropped with a right hand. He said it's the hardest punch he's ever been hit with. Maybe it was. Maybe he's being generous because there's a lot of respect between the two. I'm not sure. Maybe he's trying to explain it in his head because he thought he would do better. And so the only way he can explain it is, well, it must have been the hardest punch I was hit with. I don't know. Or maybe it genuinely was the hardest punch he's been hit with. Who knows? Either way, it was a great way for Inoue to settle that particular score. And he marches on. And perhaps, we'll see him in some very, very interesting fights in the very near future. So, moving on from the Inoue fight, we've got a little bit of news here to finish up on. And of course, there's other stuff which I'm not going to cover in this particular episode, but I will be doing separate videos for other bits of news and other fights. So watch out for those. But this bit of news here, Oscar De La Hoya says he can't wait to sell Golden Boy Promotions. He says he's sitting on $1 billion company. So if we go down here, De La Hoya says, I'm sitting on $1 billion company and I can't wait to get rid of it. And most importantly, I can't wait to be the first fighter ever to be inducted into the Hall of Fame as a promoter as well. These are goals that I have. Where are we at? We're sitting on a gold mine. When I'm ready to get out, the time will come. But in the meantime, that's the reason I want to make these big fights happen. It's crucial. It's crucial for the sport. It's crucial for my company. It's crucial, most importantly, for the fan base. He goes on to talk about, making Tank Davis against Ryan Garcia. I guess he might be trying to sign Tank Davis if Tank Davis really is out of contract. We'll see about that. But in terms of De La Hoya saying he can't wait to get out, can't wait to sell his company. you do wonder what De La Hoya is going to do without being involved in boxing promotion. Is he going to fulfill, or is he going to pursue his true destiny? And you guys can speculate on what his true destiny may be. But if it's not being a boxing promoter, he's a wrong'un. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to get in trouble with any algorithm here, but De La Hoya's a wrong'un, and I'm sure you guys can imagine the kind of stuff that this guy probably wants to be doing 24/7, rather than having to be involved in the boxing business from a business perspective, right? So yeah, that is De La Hoya saying he wants to get out of the game as quick as possible. And who would take over the company? I guess there are already people there, right? De La Hoya's apparently just a face anyway. So those guys would, those guys might take over the running of the business, but who would actually buy it? That's the thing. Who would buy the company? De La Hoya saying it's $1 billion company. Is it really? Doesn't seem like $1 billion company to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's being optimistic. Maybe there's something in his system making him feel more optimistic today. I don't know. Anyway, moving on from Oscar De La Hoya to the final story I'll cover in this particular episode, and that is a little bit of back and forth between Joe Joyce and Tyson Fury. Joe Joyce apparently was recently talking about a potential fight with Tyson Fury sometime in the future, saying he's confident that he would win. And Fury replied on Frank Warren's official Instagram page saying, "The only way anybody could beat me is with a bat while I'm sleeping." And Joyce then replied to that by saying, "Wait, I thought you were retired. If you want some, I'll give it to you." Now, that's got to be a reference to the Wheelstone Raider. Shout out to everyone who knows about the Wheelstone Raider. If you know, you know. You want some? The first time I saw that original Wheelstone Raider video, bro, I played it just obsessively over and over again, and it just never seemed to stop being funny. The Wheelstone Raider. And they even came out with a song, and I mean, it's, crazy. So that sounds like Wheelstone Raider, a Wheelstone Raider reference there from Joe Joyce. And look, Joyce is what, 36 or something now? He's actually older than Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury's 34. I swear Joe Joyce is 36. So he has to be calling out everybody. Joyce has come across as kind of a nice guy, you know, not in the really bad, concerning nice guy type way, but I guess in the just professional respect nice guy type way. Because in the ring, Joyce hasn't been a nice guy. He's been going in there trying to get people out of there, you know? But he has played the kind of little bit of a nice guy outside the ring to some degree, but now he is calling people out a bit more. And Joyce, you know, to be fair, Joyce comes across as a happy-go-lucky character. So he doesn't come across as a guy who's really mean and malicious. I'm sure he can get mean. I'm sure he has a mean streak in him. But he's a very happy-go-lucky type of guy. That's the way he comes across outside the ring in interviews and whatever. Just a very energetic, you know, happy-go-lucky type of individual. And I think he finds it quite fun calling out the Tyson Furies and all these type of other people, you know, saying stuff about Anthony Joshua and whatever. I think he finds it fun, and so he should. He's doing exactly what he needs to do at 36 years of age to land these big fights, call people out, make a song and dance of stuff, and hope that you can get an opportunity somewhere. Because, see, the thing about calling people out, what you're really trying to do isn't just anger the opponent to the point where he wants to fight you. No. What you're really trying to do is generate public interest in a potential matchup between you and the opponent. If you can talk enough and put in good performances in the meantime, you can build public pressure on that guy to fight you. And if not fight you, you're still building your profile. And so if you don't end up fighting the guy that you are targeting, you might get a big fight against somebody else. So Joe Joyce is doing the right thing. 36, really now or never. And I was talking earlier on about Joe Cordina, now or never. Joe Joyce being a heavyweight, yes, they do age more slowly. They tend to age more slowly than the fighters in the lower divisions. And of course, Joyce is fresh, even though he's 36, is a fresh 36 because he turned pro very late. But nevertheless, you still got to get a move on. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, of course, if you've had a lot of tough fights, that ages you, but time ages you as well. You know what I mean? The training, the wear and tear, none of us are the same at 36 as we are at 26. You know what I mean? You're never going to be quite the same. So, yeah, Joyce got to get a move on. And if he does manage to get the Tyson Fury fight, let me know what you guys think would happen in the comment section below. I personally see Tyson Fury winning all day if they fight anytime soon, but who knows? Anyway, actually, there's one more story I want to cover because this news broke just the other day. So let me just finish up with that. Okay, so we thought we were getting Derek Chisora versus Adam Kownacki, and that would have been a fun matchup stylistically, I think, with two pressure fighters going at it. And you have to figure that both guys are kind of at similar stages of their careers as well, being a bit over the hill, shot worn, etc. But instead of that fight, we are getting Kubrat Pulev versus Derek Chisora 2. I mean, this is a rematch which nobody was calling for if ever I saw one. And the extraordinary thing is, if you look at Matchroom's announcement or Eddie Hearn's announcement of the fight on his Instagram page, and by the way, you can see the poster. It says on the poster, Total Carnage. That's what Eddie Hearn describes it as, Total Carnage. Would Total Garbage be a better explanation or a better naming of this fight and this event? Because this is top of the bill. Now, that's a question, because I know you sensitive souls out there are going to say, oh my gosh, Hatman, you're saying it's total garbage. Well, that remains to be seen. We have to see the fight. But if the first fight was anything to go by, then there's a very good chance it will end up being total garbage. No, I came up with a name for this fight as Total Garbage because it was a little humorous play on the actual title, which is Total Carnage. That's all. Don't get too upset. Don't get your panties in a bunch, as Americans like to say. So, yeah, July 9th at the O2, Pulev Chisora 2. And the most extraordinary thing, as I was about to say, is the number of people commenting on Eddie Hearn's post that are completely oblivious to the fact that Pulev has beaten Chisora before. It's absolutely astonishing. If you go and actually read these comments, there are loads of people who are saying that this is an easy fight for Chisora, that Chisora deserves a tougher opponent. Unbelievable. I mean, Kubrat Pulev has seen better days for sure, but he, to me, has looked fresher than Derek Chisora. He hasn't been getting hurt all the time and what have you. I mean, some people could argue that he hasn't been fighting as tough opposition as Chisora's been fighting, and I'd say touche. But still, the first fight was an absolute snooze fest. And Kubrat Pulev won it pretty handily. I know it was officially deemed a split decision win for Pulev. I don't know what that judge was smoking, but it was very, very strong. I can assure you, go back and watch that fight. Kubrat Pulev won the fight pretty comfortably. I would say, I think one of the judges had it something like 118, 110 to Pulev. And then the other one had it something like 116, 112. And the third judge had it to Chisora by a couple rounds, which is just bizarre. There's no way Chisora won that fight. I would say Pulev by 3-4 rounds is reasonable. He definitely won the fight. And it was a case of jab, grabbing his way to victory, because this was not long after he'd been humiliated, really, by Vladimir Klitschko. He hurt Klitschko in the first round with a jab. He went for it, and he was far too reckless and got clipped with a big left hook, which he really never recovered from for the remainder of the fight. And he ended up getting knocked out real bad in, what was it, the 5th or 6th round by Klitschko with a tremendous left hook. And so when he came back from that defeat, he hooked up with, I think it's one of Klitschko's old trainers, who's a German trainer. And he basically tried to get him to implement Klitschko-like tactics, because prior to that, Kubrat Pulev wasn't a guy who would clinch a lot. But when he hooked up with this new trainer, following that loss to Klitschko, he was holding all the time. I mean, Pulev is a very macho guy. He's the kind of guy who, prior to that loss to Klitschko, would criticize fighters for clinching too much. But then, after suffering that defeat, he went ahead and realized how effective clinching is, perhaps, and why Klitschko would do it so often. So, yeah, he was clinching a lot in the Chisora fight, shut his offense down completely, used his jab, and it was a pretty comfortable points win. With the rematch being in the UK, is it possible that the referee will be sterner with Kubrat Pulev and make sure that he can't clinch as much, and therefore we get more action? I guess it's possible. But Kubrat Pulev, for me, beat Derek Chisora more convincingly than anyone other than, let's say, Vitaly Klitschko, who did beat Chisora convincingly. Chisora gave him a tough fight, but if you're talking about rounds one, Klitschko won that fight clearly. So I would say Klitschko beat him more convincingly, and I'm talking about on points. Yeah, obviously Chisora's been knocked out by Dylan White, been knocked out by David Haye, been stopped by Tyson Fury, but the guys who beat him on points, I would say Kubrat Pulev and Klitschko did it most convincingly. Anyway, Chisora's had so many losses, I forget how many people have beat him on points now. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this fight. Kubrat Pulev versus Derek Chisora 2. Are you disappointed by this, or do you think that it will surprise us? Do you think that despite the first fight being soporific, the second fight could turn out to be interesting? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. So there you have it. This concludes today's catch-up episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And yes, you will be getting more regular uploads from me from here on in. The normal schedule will resume. All right? Until next time, people, I'm out.